the thing about the story about Tokusan is that it's one of the few that we have that covers a person's entire life and the stages they went through of a great Zen teacher. And it covers the other aspect of things we study too in the fourth way. Because, as I've probably said to you before, people get attracted to Zen practice in particular because they're looking for a thing called enlightenment and realization. But, you know, sometimes it's very immature. We think that if we see that, then everything's going to be solved and that's it. And everything's over. It's not true. It's a very important experience. We're all working on it and will continue. At the same time, you don't have a self in a certain way at the bottom of things. Or another way you can look at it is that the self is so variable and so impermanent that it's not anything that you can grab. So there is such a thing as also you working on, you know, your character, maturity of yourself, which I usually put under the idea of objectivity, to have some perspective on yourself, to know yourself. All the things we do that get us in big trouble and that everybody resents us for are not because we're bad people. We don't even know what we're doing. It's the term I use is mechanical, and the term you use, it happens by itself. So the other part is to shed some light on that, and I think Tokusan's story does that as well. Okay, so we started with Tokusan being an expert on the Diamond Sutra and being a very puffed up intellectual who was right all the time, who went north to challenge these teachers who said that enlightenment was possible not through the sutras, not through understanding. And eventually meets a woman who's a senior student of Ryutan, who kind of punctures his bubble, and then he goes and sees Ryutan. Ryutan does something that actually gives him an enlightenment experience. When that happens, the next morning he gets up and he burns all his commentary on the Diamond Sutra, on which he was an expert, and we don't know exactly what happens then, but somehow he must have left. And he goes back to the south and eventually starts teaching himself. Now, as Tokusan is described, he's a very big guy, very big, fierce guy. He was very tall for a Chinese man. I think he's the one that had a bump on his head from bowing so much, from his head hitting the, and he was probably, I mean, you know, you have to interpret stories. When you say he was big, and they keep talking about how big he was and fierce, I have the feeling he was ugly. I think that's what they're trying to say in a nice way, you know? Like, he wasn't big, you know, he wasn't like Brad Pitt big. You know, he was kind of like one of the guys who's a henchman in James Bond films or something. He scared you. Yeah, he looked scared you. I think that's right, probably. Anyway, so people were really scared to come see him. Like, people came from all over to study with him, and his talks are very good. He left a whole legacy. But one thing he did at this next phase, this is phase 2, is when you came into Daisan with him into private interview, no matter what you did, he would say a word of Zen, I think is what he said, which is like saying, show me your understanding, show me what you know about the truth, show me your true nature, and whether you could say something or you couldn't, he'd hit you with a stick 30 times. And some of the people were, now this was intimidating, and the word got out that he was doing this, and I guess some of the people had the fortitude to stick around. And there is a story, and I don't know if this is with Tokusan, but it's a very nice story about either him or another teacher that was doing a similar thing. traveled around. I think this is another teacher. I think this is Tokusan. And he comes in and Tokusan asks him, where are you from? And he tells him. Now, but these are, in these days, trick questions. Like, where are you from is slang in Chinese. It's kind of like, maybe in the older slang of the 50s and 60s, would be like saying, where are you at? So it's a double thing. And he'd say, you know, I came from blah, blah, blah. And so Tokusan asks him, you know, where did you spend the last training period? Ango. He says, I spent it at blah, blah, blah. And then the teacher says, you rice bag, what have you been doing prowling around here and there? A rice bag is a bad insult. Probably like today, like calling somebody a contraceptive. Anyway, and so he then goes to his room at the monastery, the person. And the koan says he spent all night in a sea of yes and no, not understanding why he got treated so badly, why he got hit, why he got rejected. And he gets up in the morning, and this is the most interesting thing. And he says, yesterday you gave me such and such blows of your stick. And he goes back to death. He says, where was my fault? Now, the thing that is unusual, this is a very rare individual. Almost anybody in that situation, you travel quite a distance and somebody beats you up, you either leave and never come back, or you leave, come back and say nasty things about this teacher for the rest of your life, and before understanding anything about what the teacher's doing, which happens a lot, or you come in and you get angry or something, you know. But this person was open enough and had enough belief in what was going on to say, where was my fault? Say, what did I do wrong? Not what did you do wrong? And in that, there's a wonderful model. And it's not just a good model for a student to a teacher, it's a good model for anybody to your life. And you get a lot further by figuring out how you might improve than how everybody else might improve. And it's nice because since everybody else is much more worried about how everybody else might improve, if you're one of the people who's worried about how you might improve, you have your own niche. You repeat like a majority of 3. Somebody asked me today, and I'll go on to what happens with Tokusan, don't we, like they said to me, you know, you studied in the monastery, I studied in the monastery. Don't we not get as good a training as the people who go to a monastery? And I've answered that for you all in various ways, but let me give you a mathematical answer. Most people go to a monastery, if they can last 3 years, it's a lot. After that, they leave pissed off and never do any practice ever again. Okay, so count up 3 years of sitting and practicing, say 5 times as much as you're doing now, even 8 times of that, and then count up 30 years of doing it every day. You win mathematically. Also, in 3 years, you can't mature. There's age helps too. So the thing about a monastery is it's intense, but for most people it doesn't last long. It's worth doing for a limited period of time and come out. So this is Tokusan's second period. He's beating everybody. 30 blows if you say a word, 30 if you don't. And for those of you doing koans, this is a koan. You have to pass it. It's a very hard one.